Now we are recording. Good call. We just went through about a 1 minute recording, and I was on top of the comedy world for those 60 seconds. Those are jokes that are going to be buried in history. This is Quinn David Furness. This is my podcast, the Beantown podcast, the People's Podcast, voted one of Baltimore's top 500 podcasts by you, the fans. Just checked today. We are up to 5 ratings on iTunes. They're all 5 stars. So that's basically like 25 stars. Thank you. That's a lot of stars. Thank you very much for your support on that. This is Quinn David Furness. We are coming to you live from the great city of Chicago, greatest city on earth. I'm here to celebrate a couple of different things. Significant date for me, July 7th. That's when I arrived in Beantown last year. 2017 is now July 7th, 2018. We're going to be telling that moving story. Got some of my buddies here because we are celebrating a farewell to Farwell, the apartment I lived in last year, and then the apartment that a bunch of my buddies still live in. We are finally moving, I moved out. They are finally moving out of in a couple of weeks here, which I know everyone is excited about. That $1,700 a month 4-bedroom rent is nice, but there comes a time in every man's life when you have to decide that there are greener pastures. So let's jump into it here. I want to tell my story, and then I'm just going to open up to everyone here to tell any stories that they want about Farwell. Listener discretion is advised when you are listening to the Beantown podcast. Number 1, we will use some objective language potentially here and there, particularly today because these guys are just swearing like sailors. I was watching Jaws on the 4th of July at a bar a couple days ago. It was awesome. And Quinn, who's the crazy like sea captain in that movie, he uses a phrase called swimming with bow-legged women. Which is just like, basically bow-legged women I think are like promiscuous women. Boat-legged women, yeah. We're going to need a bigger boat. That was just, so I've used that phrase like every day since then, and people don't know what it means, and that's okay, because that's my kind of comedy. That's number 1. Number 2, the podcast is objectively terrible, so thank you for supporting us. This is episode number 26. This is the halfway point in the year, so excited to be doing this for the first half of the year, and here's to another half a year, and next thing you know, we'll all be old and gray. So I lived in this apartment when I was in grad school for 1 year. It is a 4-bedroom apartment. George Bernard Shaw designed. Is he the architect? No, what's the name of the architect? Who's the famous architect?
It was George Bernard Shaw.
That's him with all like the famous houses and stuff.
Hemingway himself.
Yeah.
And Faulkner came here one summer. And
No, wait, hold on. I think you've got that wrong. The architect is a pretty big Chicago architect. His name was like Frank
Lloyd.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Frank Zappa.
Oh yeah.
Zappa,
No,
of
Frank
course.
Zappa.
That's a good catch, Sean.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of people know Frank Lloyd Wright for his houses, but Frank Zappa, actually, very famous.
That's where the true genius lie.
I am joined by former roommates Sean Young and Ryan Sanger, and we have a guest appearance from Mr. Stephen Boy today. I don't think it picked up, but that's okay. We got some beer flowing. I got 2 giant-ass 20-inch pizzas from JB Alberto's on Morse. Go support your local business. We're one pizza in, 1 pizza to go. Maybe JP John Bowles Pendowski will make an appearance with his brother at some point. We don't know what his situation is. JP was on my podcast about 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was fun. We talked about being a music student. But I lived in this apartment. If you're trying to get a picture in your head, if anyone out there saw Call Me By Your Name, you know, it's like the summer home in Tuscany, the wine's flowing, everyone's having a good time. That's pretty much what it's like here. You know, it's a summer home. It's a vacation for a lot of people. Ryan will occasionally come here when he's not at his girlfriend's house. So that's that got a laugh from the peanut gallery.
I think that's racist.
I don't think it is.
In fact,
if you couldn't tell already, there's going to be a lot of laughing in this podcast, and I am okay with that because laughing is my favorite thing, and I love it. Let me tell this story, otherwise we're going to be here for an hour, because the story's pretty extensive, and I know I told all you guys right after it happened, and I told my friends in the moment, but 1 year later I realized that's the type of thing that you'll forget the finer details before too long if you don't actually write it down or record it somewhere. So that's really the purpose of what I'm doing here, but I think it's an entertaining story. So flashback to July 6th. I work in the morning. My job in Evanston is my last shift ever there. And I go pick up the budget truck, and first sign of trouble, I had requested like the smallest truck that they can give you because I really didn't have very much. I had like a bookcase, a dresser, a twin bed mattress, and like a couple boxes, and that's really what I had. I didn't have much. A desk that I had stolen from DePaul. What's the statute of limitations on that stuff? I don't. We're gonna find out.
I don't think anyone important from DePaul's.
I think if you've had it for 1
Famous
year,
last
it's
words.
yours.
Okay, that's good because I have it for 2. I have 3 actually, almost now. So I bring first sign of trouble. As I mentioned, they gave me like the medium, like one away from the large size truck. Remember how big my truck was last year and like how little stuff I had?
Yeah, we didn't even fill up like a half of it.
Which might seem like a good problem to have, but it's not when you like. I don't have like all the straps and stuff to like keep that stuff in place. So now I'm trying to drive from Chicago to the East Coast, like stuff sloshing around, and that was the first indication that things could go south. So bring it down to Rogers Park. Dear friend Sean, who is a absolute trooper, saved my ass twice with moving. Really do appreciate that, Sean. Helped me load up the truck. I think I got some JB Albertos or Giordano's actually.
Yeah.
Good one, Sean.
Okay, so
Let's recreate that. Instant replay. Yeah. Crickets.
I should clarify that like Quinn finishes his last shift at Northwestern, and then he gets home, and I basically have like I've been out of bed for like 15 minutes. Classic. And so Quinn looks at me, and I look at him, and we just go. We just start loading stuff up.
Yeah. It was a hot day, as it tends to be in early July in Chicago. And I had to park. The moving truck wasn't like ridiculously far away, but it was down there on the other side of the street. And we had to like walk through that sprinkler every time. So it was more of a hassle than like what it should be, but I was like, okay, this is fine. We'll do it. We do that. We have some pizza. I think I took the rest of the pizza. And I had to drive to Muncie that night because I was staying with a girl out there. And that trip was fine. It took me like 4 or 5 hours because it was just Chicago, Northwest Indiana traffic. That was the end of day 1. That was fine. So day 2 is where shit hits the fan. Apologies for my language. It's about a 12-hour drive from the Indianapolis area out to Baltimore. And the drive itself really is not a problem. I mean, that's a long ways to go by yourself in one day, but I knew what I had to do. I was up to the task. And you have like this nervous energy the whole time too, because you're going to a new place, a new city I've never been to, like starting a new job. This is all very exciting, all very fresh. So I was tired, I was hot, but I had a positive attitude. I show up to the now famous home of the podcast, 817 St. Paul Street, on Friday night, July 7th at about 7 p.m. And second sign of trouble. The person, like not my landlord, but the management lady who was like helping me with details said, yeah, we'll have space out for your truck to like so that you're not blocking traffic. Well, there's no space like for my truck to be parked, so I'm blocking traffic, and I'm like, it's crazy hot. If you've ever been to Baltimore in July, you know how hot it is, and I'm just like a little frustrated at this point. But I'm like, okay, we'll get my movers here, so we'll be fine. Third sign of trouble. Right as I pull in, the first thing I do, I've got my truck parked out in front. It's a 2-lane street, so I'm only blocking half of traffic. But I get my keys real quick and I go into my room go into my apartment just because it's my first ever apartment I've ever lived in by myself. Like, this is exciting. I want to see what it actually looks like with my own eyes. As I'm walking up, I get a text. I had hired some movers online to help me unload my truck. That's all I needed. It's going to be a basic job. They text me and say, hey, my guys are out in Frederick right now, which is an hour west of Baltimore. We're not going to be able to be there right now, but we can get there at I think they said 9. And I was like, okay, this is not ideal, but I'm going to be patient. I'm going to let it happen. So I take my truck and I pull it off to a side street so I'm not blocking traffic anymore. And I wait and my phone was not doing super well on battery because I had just driven from Muncie that day. And it gets to be 9:15 and nothing from this moving guy. And I call him and he's like, yeah, our guys are still in Frederick. We're not going to come out tonight. And I was like, oh, cool. Thanks for the heads up an hour ago, and you obviously still knew that. So at that point, I'm having a major freak out. I'm like, okay, well, when can you guys come out? He says, we can get there at 6 a.m. the next morning. I'm like, that sucks because I still have all my stuff in the truck and nothing in my apartment, but that's fine. At this point, this was my biggest mistake of the whole process. I was on a street where it was paid to park, but if I had read the signs, the actual places where you go get your ticket closely, I would have seen that I could have left my truck there overnight, but I was had never been in this city before, never really lived downtown anywhere in my life, and I was a little just kind of freaking out. So I improvised. I took my truck. It's 3 miles away to the actual truck return place where I was going to leave it when I was done. And I took it there at 11 p.m. and left it there with all my stuff in it, locked up, took an Uber back to my apartment with just things that I could carry. I think I had a pillow and a suitcase and a sleeping bag and probably my phone charger in my backpack. And it was really sad. I went and got a pizza. I was it had been such a long day because I'd driven 12 hours and had this whole fiasco. But I was like, okay, I made it. I'm here. I wake up the next morning. I have to wake up at 4:30 a.m. because I have to go get the truck before this place opens, or else they're going to be like, why is this truck here with all this stuff in it? Take it back to my apartment and meet the guys there who are going to help me unload. So I go grab my truck, 5 a.m., drive it back to my apartment. And I get there and I'm like, okay, I have all this stuff in the back of the truck. I can unload some of this by myself because I had plenty of boxes that were one-man jobs. So I start to do that and I keep going and I keep going. And it's probably 6 at this point when this guy's supposed to arrive. And all I have left it's my bookcase, my dresser, my desk, and maybe one other thing. I don't remember exactly what it was. But things that, Sean, from you and I having to move those things twice, those are pretty heavy-duty objects.
Yeah, definitely not one-person jobs.
Yeah, that's straight up not one-person jobs. And I get to the point where I'm like, so I hadn't paid this moving guy yet because I had his cash for him. And I was just like, I'm about to float this guy, whatever, it was $200 for him and his crew, however many people that is, to move these 4 pieces. It's going to take them 5 minutes, and I'm going to pay $200 for this. And at that point, I was so tired and so pissed. I was like, I'm taking a moral and a physical stand, and I'm not going to let this happen. So I do what no man should ever do, and I exercise my muscles, my back, my legs in ways that you shouldn't have to do. You have to go up 2 sets of steps to get to the elevator in my apartment, and I managed to do that with the dresser, the bookshelf, all that stuff. And my back and my arms and my hamstrings were pretty not only sore, but they had tweaked themselves quite a bit, that I was not in good shape for about a week after that. But I was I did it. So I get in the truck. As I'm driving away, this guy calls me and he's like, yo, we're just pulling up. Where are you? And I was just like, sorry, dude. Basically, fuck you. That's not what I said, but that's what I wanted to say. I drive the truck. I return it back to the place. I take one final Uber back to my apartment. And then from there, I had 2 days, 48 hours before I was starting work, unloaded a bunch of stuff. Was super sweaty. I hadn't showered in 3 days. And the rest is sort of history. But that was the long-winded version of my moving experience last year. I did not have to move this year, which I'm infinitely thankful for, because moving is a pain in the butt, as these guys here at Farwell are about to experience again. But that was my moving story. I've lived in Baltimore for exactly 1 year now. It's been full of ups and downs, but I'm happy to be back here in Chicago this weekend to celebrate. So with that, I'm gonna open up the podcast to the guys to share some of their favorite stories from 2 years ago now, when we were all living together, and then this last year when they were living by or with each other in this apartment. I'm trying to think. If I would have been smart about this, I would have come with my own story to sort of get us going about my favorite things that were happening here. But I'll just say we had plenty of nights when I lived here in which we'd get the blue lights going here in the living room, and we turn on the Grand Theft Auto 5 and get a little like Headhunters going, and usually some liquor involved. And I always really appreciated like being able to play your PlayStation, Sean, because I never really had that sort of stuff growing up, and I never really played GTA before like my sophomore year of college, when I first like started going over to your guys' apartment. And I actually like love GTA 5. I wish I had it at home. It's a good thing I don't, because I would never do anything else. There's just so much you can do on there. But we had plenty of nights, and there were plenty of nights where I would come home from grad school. I'd work from 8 to 5, go to class from 6 to 9, and I just need a beer. I need to eat my jambalaya, and I need to play some GTA 5 just for like two runs before I go write a paper and like get 4 hours of sleep. So I really appreciated that, and for you guys for literally providing everything, couch, TV, PlayStation, banging records, so all that stuff. So it's not a specific memory, but something that I really liked doing. So I'll turn it over to anyone else who wants to share some of their favorite thoughts, stories from Farwell.
I'll go first, because this is actually a story from when I was helping you move in the first time, Quinn. Okay. And you want to talk about statute of limitations. So I helped you move all your stuff into the truck, and that went off without a hitch. So we get into the truck, and I remember I had just like gotten into Chicago. I'd like just walked off a plane, and I was on my way to the place. And I got the text message from you, and you were just asking, could I help you move? And I just figured, what? I'm going to be passing through the area anyway. I need to get to the apartment. Fuck it. Let's do this. So we get everything in the truck, and then we begin the drive to Farwell. Except you drove through this one alleyway, and you started swearing because the alleyway was particularly small, and this one guy had parked his car in such a way that like the back bumper was like sticking into the alley a little. And I remember we were stuck in the alleyway, and then I looked over at you, and I looked ahead, and I suddenly saw the truck moving inwards. And I heard you say, "Fuck it," and I heard the sound of the truck scraping against this guy's back bumper, and I watched the car sway back and forth from the amount of like weight the truck was putting on it, and we just drove away, and I was dying in the passenger seat. I was laughing.
What alley were you in?
Oh man, it was like yeah.
That's what happens moving weekend.
Yeah, I mean that was.
If you don't park your car right, you're gonna get fucked up.
That was like my first Farwell memory. But do you guys remember? You guys remember getting into the apartment and we found out that like half the apartment didn't have electricity?
Yeah.
Was I there for that?
Yeah, you must have been.
I don't remember having an electricity issue. I remember my My ceiling fan, like the whole time I lived here, and Brenda's probably experienced this, like the cord was jammed, and so I could never, I could never have the light on without the ceiling fan being on. It was always a 1-to-1 relationship. Is it still the same way?
I want to actually add to that. So now
Come talk into the mic.
Okay, this is very temporarily, but they fixed the light, and fixed in quotation marks. So now that it's warm and it's summer, I can use the fan now. Yay! And the light works. Yay! But if I want to have the fan on, I must have the light on.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's what we're talking
No,
about.
no, no. But like they also like, wait. You said the light didn't work when you moved in, because I told you the light does not work.
One or the other, right?
You're right. The light
Did not work. The fan did, but the light didn't.
Yeah, now I'm forgetting exactly what it was.
Yeah.
The light, I don't think I ever
Your
had
light never worked.
Yeah.
I had the overhead light on. I always had my lamp. That's right. 'Cause it was
Exactly,
always,
that's
like,
what-
weird dark lighting in my room. It was like a dungeon in there.
Because it's the
dungeon of
darkest
education
room.
papers.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was gonna say. They finally fixed that,
Okay.
but now you have to have the light on if you want.
Oh, man.
And it's okay. They're all sharing the electricity bill with me.
Thank you for sharing that. Brenda lives in the room that I lived in last year.
I'm a bad placeholder.
What do you mean? Absolutely not. I'm sure you are a better roommate than I was. I was never around last year. I was busy with school and stuff, so it's nice to have someone to take care of stuff, though. Yeah,
I want to go briefly back to when you were pulling away with the truck and the movers were coming up and they're like, "Hey, we're just getting here. Where are you?" I think the only mistake you made was that you should have been like, "Oh man, I'm stuck in traffic. I'll be there in 20 minutes," and then kept them waiting as long as you could.
reversal, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to pull off, though, at 6:15 in the morning
when
on a
you're
weekend.
fucking dying. Like,
That would have been good. I was at the point where like I was just like over all of it, and I had like finally gotten away. But yeah, if I was a little bit more conniving, that would have been a good idea. Oh man, what do you got, Ryan Sanger? You got any fun memories from this apartment?
a fair amount
Just
of them.
go. Yeah.
Oh.
Now's your time.
Let's see here. Trying to get some good stories with the good old Q David.
I want to clarify that even though this is my podcast, have only lived in this apartment for half of its tenure. So please don't feel like anything you share has to relate to me. Like, I'm sure you guys had plenty of fun shit happen this past year.
I've got a great story. Okay, so the neighborhood that Farwell is in is it's definitely not the safest. It's not at all one of the worst neighborhoods, but it's definitely not like the safest. So maybe like 2 months ago, I think the craziest thing that's ever happened to me in this apartment was I watched a guy get arrested by like 4 cops for attempting a drive-by on the street just north of ours. And the dude like apparently shot at somebody outside of a grocery store in plain view of 2 police officers and then tried to speed away at like 90 to get away from them. But he turned onto Farwell and lost control of his car like right at our intersection. And he crashed into the row of like 6 cars that are like right in front of my place. And when I was in my room when I heard the crash, and so I got up to go see what was going on, and I see like blue lights flashing everywhere outside the windows. And I would look outside and I hear this guy screaming as the cops like arrest him and like yank him to his feet because he's like climbing out of this car that he just wrecked. And the dude was going so fast, he totaled 2 of the cars in the row of 6 and like damaged all of them just to varying degrees. And it was absolutely insane. And the dude was just screaming the whole time. Like I've never heard another human being like make that level of noise. But he's just screaming anytime the cops laid their hands on him. And there are people like that are coming out of their apartments wondering what's going on. And it wasn't great seeing the people who owned those cars that got totaled, seeing them freak out and react because this guy probably doesn't have insurance to cover all that. Yeah, probably not. Just a guess. But you never know.
Oh shit. Well, and there were also car parts and broken glass in our front yard and the street for about 2 weeks after.
That kind of just blends in with the backyard, though.
It does, yeah. It's funny how that works. But
Let me give a quick summary description of what our backyard is notable for. When we moved in, it was Rat Kingdom, and it was like that for a while. You go in the backyard, there are just holes, like you'd find in an area where gophers live, except these were rats, and they live underground, and you can hear them at night if you're like quiet and you're sitting in the kitchen. They're like loud as hell and they make a lot of noise. I can recall a couple of times taking out the garbage late at night. You open up the garbage can and a rat like scurries or jumps out. Oh, yeah. It was scary the first time, and then like you learn like
you get used to
open it and like
kick it a
jump
couple
away.
times.
Yeah, exactly. But we also have an interesting situation with power lines. In our backyard, like I think when we got here, it was already a little unusual how low to the ground they were compared to where power lines should be. But as last year went on and we were just out on the deck right before recording this, looking at how low they are now, and they're being hung up by like a guitar cord and stuff. And I don't know, are there any down on the ground right now in the backyard?
No.
That's good, because I recall...
Because I did fix this once, actually. They were back to normal.
Okay.
But they came back, I mean, it was like a month ago. Well, they just fell back down again.
To clarify a little bit, the one cable that Ryan is talking about was actually not connected to anything. It was... Yes. It had been hanging in our backyard at, like, face level, and then Ryan pulled on it one day and he just kept pulling, and then he just wrapped it up and threw it away. And these cables like keep getting lower and lower every month. Like you go out there and suddenly there'll be one that's at like shoulder level, and this is just the reality of our backyard.
It's like a running gag almost in a TV show where it's like every opening, whatever, it's like the cables are a little bit lower and you realize like, am I going crazy or are they getting a little bit lower? I wish we would have taken some pictures when we moved in compared to where they look now, because I'm sure it's significantly lower. But there's that. The grass is like half dead, half overgrown.
And we got a giant mulberry tree.
Big mulberry tree.
It's gotten big too.
When we were out there, for sure, it's gotten bigger. We've got like a trellis. There's a corner where like clearly a garden used to try to happen, and I don't think we or you guys ever did anything here. There are bikes out there. There are some chairs. I tried to start some fires out there. I had this blue vodka that my friend Eric had given me when he was here for Thanksgiving. And Eric just got married last night, which was really cool. Congratulations to him. But we had it in our freezer for way too long. And I had that like plastic synthetic Christmas tree that I'd taken from 1237 West in the garbage can. It was sitting here for the longest time.
There's always Christmas at 1320.
Always Christmas at 1320. I had taken in the backyard, doused it with that blue vodka. I had like this big idea, like vodka's gonna burn. It's gonna be the Christmas tree. It's gonna be awesome. Nothing happened. It was just a fake plastic Christmas tree in a puddle of blue vodka. No fire. I spent like 2 minutes on it. I was like, this is going nowhere. So, which was a common theme. There's a video on my YouTube channel of me from just about a year ago in my yellow shorts. My brother was recording it of me trying to burn this thick packet of paper that we had to pay $80 for a grad school class, and we didn't use it at all in class, which was frustrating. So I tried to burn it in the backyard, and nothing really came of that. But you guys can go watch that on my YouTube channel. But yeah, that's the backyard. We don't need to talk about the basement because that's a whole other separate thing. Like it's like the perfect like horror movie basement. There's like a table saw in there, doors you don't know where they go to. Like our washers and dryers are down there.
Sometimes the sewage backs up and overflows.
It's tasty.
Yeah, I think that's recent. I don't know if that was happening.
I never had that here. Yeah. Thank God. No, but. Ryan, you got anything you want to share?
I guess one of my favorite memories collection of memories from when Quinn was around. This is actually a good story. Quinn went through all of the Joplin rags and all of the Beethoven sonatas in his time here. And
I want to quickly clarify, not all the Joplin rags, like half of them, and definitely not all the Beethoven sonatas, because if you heard me try to play like Hammerklavier or something...
You read through Hammerklavier, right?
Not here. I tried to once in the concert hall. I remember texting Steven and just being like, I can't do this. You get to that fourth movement, and you know what it's supposed to sound like, because it's like the cool fugal action, but you can't because it's like it's so much going on. And I got like halfway through that movement, I was just like, this doesn't sound the way Beethoven promised it was going to sound. I can't do it. It's too hard. That's my interruption. I apologize. Keep going.
Yeah, but I don't know, it'd be like any or all hours of the day. You just hear some thudding, some very heavy plastic thudding, and then the sounds of Beethoven emerging from the living room. And it was actually always very good, too. I enjoyed listening to it, honestly. But we had one roommate that did not. She was very passive-aggressive about not enjoying it, too. So, but yeah, it was always kind of fun. And be like cooking something, and then you're doing a little ragtime dance.
Yeah, love some good ragtime dances.
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff. Yeah, go ahead. Sean.
I feel like we can't go any further without discussing the first masquerade.
Yeah.
That's your guys' territory.
Oh, yeah, you were there, but
I was okay. I mean,
you had to sleep.
I think that was a weird night. I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but that was a night where I ended up hooking up with this Loyola girl who I had like gone on one date with. She lived just like 5 blocks south of here, so I walked out there. It was totally like a booty call situation, and I don't remember if I like slept there or if I came back here or what the situation was. I came back here, but yeah, there were just a bunch of people, and I like wasn't in the party mood for whatever reason because I'm a party pooper. But yeah, you guys threw some banger parties. You want to talk about the party? Yeah.
So upstairs in our Farwell apartment, we used to have these collection of Loyola students, most of which were also in their last year at the school. And we befriended them, and so we met Brenda and a lot of other really cool people. But I came up with this idea about, a themed party. Everyone just wears a mask or brings your own. And the upstairs neighbors were into the idea, so they agreed to make it like a double-decker party. So you could wander freely between both floors of the apartment. And this escalated upstairs quite interestingly because we ended up having a divide in our place where like most of the DePaul people that were invited hung around only on the first floor and all the Loyola people were like on the second floor. But the upstairs neighbors invited like a bunch of these freshmen that got really, really drunk and like threw up on their floor, and they said there's a lot of spilled beer on their apartment, and our apartment was like totally clean, full of all the cool jazz cats that knew how to hold their drink and were generally just chilling out. And you went upstairs and it was like a battleground.
Yeah, that's the masquerade. Thank God we never had any like parties that totally wrecked our place. I think that was self-inflicted wounds, but yeah.
I think we kind of fantasized about it a little bit. Like we had these ideas that we'd have these like huge raiders that spiral out of control and cause like upturned couches and broken windows, but I don't think
that's my fantasy for every party. And so, I'm going for it again tonight. If y'all want to join me.
It's the last chance, yeah.
Last chance.
Oh, man. Yeah, broken windows might be a tougher sell, but where did that pumpkin come from? That's pretty cool.
My mother sent me a bunch of Halloween decorations from our place. There's a skeleton above my head.
Oh, very good. Is that glow in the dark?
No, but you can toggle a little switch behind his head and his eyes light up.
It looks like it should be glow in the dark, doesn't it?
I agree.
Based on that color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like definitely like that little faded green.
It looks like your hat.
It does. I've been wearing my Quinn David Furness Presents the Beantown podcast swag all around the city of Chicago. If you're interested, you can tweet at us. We're at BeantownCast. You can also send us an email, beantownpodcast@yahoo.com. That's Beantown, BEANTOWN, podcast@yahoo.com. Facebook, Instant Messenger, Tumblr. I'm on all that stuff. So, yeah, let us know if you want any swag. We got hats. I'll pierce your ear for a nominal fee.
He pierced mine, and I can attest that it is actually a quality job.
That's a metaphor, in case anyone was wondering.
I got a bit of an infection for a couple of weeks, but after a really strong antibiotic trial, the doctors say I should be okay.
It's not as easy as Lindsay Lohan makes it look in The Parent Trap while they're at summer camp. It's just like, get the ice cube, do the deed, and everyone's happy. But no, yeah, not quite as simple. I don't know. This side of the room, any other good stories you want to share?
Well, I mean, Parent Trap is a pretty good story.
Oh, I mean, it
is a good one.
Yeah, it's a tale as old as time. Yeah. It's so old they made it twice.
I just want to know, do you have any fun lake stories?
You said
from your
lake?
time here, yeah.
Like
going down to the lake.
Like Lake Michigan. Not
because we do. 1320 is situated 3 minutes walking from Lake Michigan.
This is true.
Very pretty view.
Most of my good lake stories happened while I was a sophomore/junior, aka senior in college. I didn't spend a ton of time at the Loyola Beach while I lived here, and that was largely just because I was working full time and I was in grad school full time. I didn't just have a bunch of time to just be outside. But I remember Thanksgiving 2016. I think you were maybe around, Sean, but I think you were with your cousin.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Ariel was around, but I don't remember seeing her at all that day. So it was Thanksgiving 2016, and I don't have any family in Chicago. I was still relatively new to my grad school friends. I had actually got invited to one friend's family get together, but I felt I didn't quite know her well enough to be oh yeah, this would be cool. Now, 2 years later, Quinn would jump on that opportunity. I just went to a wedding yesterday in which I knew no one except the bride and groom, and that's scary, but I love that nervous energy now. 2 years ago, I didn't as much. So I went. My Thanksgiving consisted of waking up and walking down to the lake, and I took a picture, and I put it on Facebook, and the caption was, "Happy Thanksgiving from my family to yours," and it was a selfie, and it was pretty depressing. Yeah, cue the sound effects. And then I don't think I ever told anyone this. The one time I had Papa John's while I lived in this apartment. There's a Papa John's down on Devon. It's a mile from here. And I order my pizza online, and I go down to get it, and I had done a total dyslexic thing with the numbers. And so when I had gotten down there, I turned west instead of east. And I walked almost all the way to where, you remember when we went to the Salvation Army that one time?
Oh my God.
I almost walked all the way down there. As where is this Papa John's? I was probably buzzed because it's Thanksgiving alone. I was sure I was having beer. And then I looked it up on my phone and realized I had walked completely the wrong direction. So I got my pizza, and that was that. But happy Thanksgiving from my family to yours. Any other good lake stories though? Man, I don't know. I have a really good 4th of July story that I'm not going to tell right now because it's too long. But yeah, okay, I'm going to tell it real quick. I'm going to immortalize this on the podcast. I hope you guys will indulge me I'll keep it under 3 minutes or so. 4th of July, 2015. I was just finishing up sophomore year. I lived in an apartment in Uptown. It was a 3-bedroom apartment that I lived in with 4 other guys. So I was splitting a bedroom with my roommate Trevor. My 2 other roommates, Sam and Ben, had moved out of the apartment, and we still had 3 months left on our lease. So they were subletting that apartment to 2 people, one whom we lived with on our floor in Corcoran Hall our freshman year, and he's like an okay guy, kind of crazy, kind of a partier, but like at his core, like fine, can handle him. The other person was really into acid and I think was dealing, and I didn't know her at all, and just like I don't know, it wasn't a good fit. But they lived with us. So 4th of July happens, and I had to work till 4 that day. I get home. I had a couple of Hawaiian punch and vodkas, because that's what you drink when you're a sophomore in college and not 21.
19.
Exactly. Yeah. So I get like pretty drunk, and I walked out to the Montrose Beach and the pier out there, because you can see Evanston fireworks, and you can see I think Navy Pier fireworks as well. It's a perfect spot. I do that. I had to work at noon the next day, so I was like, okay, no need for me to drink anymore. I'm just by myself. I'm just gonna walk home, which is about a half-hour walk from where I was. So I worked the buzz off. I get home, and there is a huge rager happening in our apartment, being thrown by the two people that were subletting. And I just apparently like lost control and said, yeah, let's go wild. Certainly some peer pressure involved. And the only thing I really remember is drinking a ton. I don't remember what we were drinking, but it was definitely straight liquor. And I remember like falling on my bedroom floor and puking all over my rug. And that's like where I slept that night. And my roommate wakes me up the next morning because we had a group of people coming to see the apartment, right? Because our lease was going to be up in like 3 weeks or something. And so my roommate Trevor's like, dude, people are coming in 15 minutes. You have puke all over yourself, all over the floor. Like, let's make something happen here. So I quickly clean up. I don't even remember if I had time to shower. But I got that cleaned up, and it was going to be fine. Like, I felt terrible, but like the apartment looked fine. So that summer, my normal routine was to walk to work. It was like a little under an hour each way, but I was so cheap at that point. I wasn't paying for the train. But I was like, I'm clearly hungover. This wasn't my first time being hungover. I'd been drinking for a year at this point. But it was definitely the most significant pain I've ever felt. I get on the red line. We're going south. I'm not feeling great. There's some like motion sickness. But I'm like, it's 3 stops to get from Sheridan down to Fullerton where I work. I can do this. And I feel fine until we get to Belmont. I'm like 1 stop away. It's 1 mile. I can do this. And right as the train starts to leave Belmont, I'm the type of person I know I'm going to puke for about 60 seconds before it actually happens. And I knew 60 seconds wasn't enough. And lo and behold, it wasn't. This is a pretty packed train of people. I'm wearing like a wife beater and gym shorts to go to work, of course, because I'm classy. And and I open, if you're imagining wearing a wife beater, imagine just like grabbing it at your chest, opening up like you're throwing something in the garbage and just letting loose like Mount Vesuvius. It just like goes all down my stomach, like onto my shoes. And of course, I feel terrible, one physically, but also like because everyone on this train's looking at me because now I'm the crazy person. Like usually you're on the other side of that, and now I'm the crazy person who's puking at middle of the day. Like, what the hell is this kid's problem? So we get to Fullerton, and I had to work for 8 hours. So I go to work, and I make like the necessary calls I need to make to like start my shift. And then I head to the bathroom, and I just like stripped down, washed my body, and then like washed my clothes. And I spent the rest of my 8-hour shift like in wet clothes, because what else was I supposed to do? And this story was longer than 3 minutes. I apologize for that, but it's pretty much over. I go home. I wake up the next morning still hungover. The first and only time in my life that I've had a double hangover. And I had to work that day too, but I didn't puke anymore. But that was my crazy 4th of July after my sophomore year of college. So
you are the winner of the worst hangover story I've ever heard.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and I'm sure like I wouldn't have had the hangover the next morning if I had drank enough, but I'm sure I wasn't like up to feeling like I should hydrate. Yeah, that was bad. Thanks for for having me share. No, it's a good one. I'm happy. If you haven't noticed already, a lot of this podcast isn't specifically geared at humor or comedy. It's just to sort of get some of these memorable stories out in the open, so that you can experience them and so that we can go back anytime we want and listen to them with the details. Yeah, go for it.
If maybe we should start positive instead of going for the one I really want to go for. Are there any things that Quinn, is there anything you miss about this place? But for Ryan, Steven, and I, is there anything that you think we're gonna miss about this place?
Why don't you guys go first? Anything you think you're going to miss?
Well, I know for sure that I'm going to miss the lake placement, and I'm going to miss the backyard. Even though it's kind of a piece of shit right now, it's like the next place does not have a backyard at all. It's got concrete and a garage that doesn't belong to us. So, and it's also on a triangle lot. It's on a triangle lot. So, I mean, like, we're just on an island surrounded by streets. So, we have no lawn, but
We're getting an awesome sunroom, though.
we do, yes.
The
so
sunroom
that
is
definitely
sick.
pays for it. Yeah, and let's be honest, we'd hang out in that more than the lawn anyway.
Yeah. I think, the thing... I think it's not something I will miss, but it's something I already miss. I actually, I don't particularly miss the guys upstairs. I miss, one or two of them. But I think the other, I miss having that level of camaraderie with our neighbors. I think I felt like it was chill to just be able to go up there, for them to come down here and see who's doing what. But those days are over.
I would say, despite having been in this house when it apparently started on fire and hearing many gunshots and different ambulatory services arriving for different things, I've always felt secure in this building, so I'm gonna miss that.
You're not going to feel secure in our new place?
I don't know. I haven't been.
I mean,
there.
you are moving in with me, so...
I hope to just spend all my time just hanging up there like a monkey in a tree.
Wasn't
Spend
there
the
a
rest of
wasn't
the
there a
days
time when you
over
were
there.
climbing a tree outside of a Lincoln Park bar and forced you guys to be removed? Someone tell that story. I wasn't there for that. I
Well,
was
that
on
was-
duty or something.
That was nearing the end of
Our senior year
our
of college.
Yeah, our
Yeah,
senior year.
Those
was
guys'
after
junior
the
years.
Final
Yeah.
concert too, and Steven had just played. We'd both played, but we'd started drinking after the concert, and we were drunk.
Yeah, I was really far gone.
Yeah, Steven was really drunk, and
Very
we were
wine drunk.
we were getting we were actually drinking at Quinn's old place.
Yep.
When he was
1237 West.
That was fun.
It was a fun place to drink.
Yeah, it was a good
Casual hang.
But
Had a TV with
we're
all the
walking out
channels.
to
Steve
the
and I watched the
bars.
spelling bee one time.
Oh my god! I remember watching the Super Bowl at your place.
We
too.
did.
That was
I got too drunk for that.
Ah.
We had Bree Leach was there. Probably Amanda Patino. Or name dropping.
That's a good thing.
Name dropping on the podcast.
No, and Katrina came too.
That's right. I think that was the first time I ever met Katrina too. Now
I
we're
think that was the first
Snapchat
time I
buddies.
met
Yeah,
Katrina.
she
Yeah.
did come there.
Yeah. But sorry, we are way off topic. Keep going with the story.
But, okay, so we're fucked up, and we're going out to, Halligan's, and it's already close to bar time, and we're getting there, and basically people are starting to come out of the bars, but it's not bar time yet, and Steven pulls himself up into a tree outside of this bar, Halligan's, and the bouncer's these three over testosterone dudes come over.
Testosterone. That was a kick-ass acapella all-male group name right there. Testosterone.
Actually, that is one of the group names in Pitch Perfect.
Okay.
The Testosterone.
Never seen it. Never seen it.
Um,
I'm gonna be proud of myself for thinking of that anyways.
Sorry, it's a reference to the first season of, what's that show? Choir High School.
Glee.
Glee.
Ryan showing his true colors here. He knows about Pitch Perfect and he knows about Glee.
Yep. I did watch the first season of Glee.
Oh, Mr. Shoe's unforgettable. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Remember when he had a wife and then she just
It's like Terry or something, and then she
Yeah.
starts whoring herself out,
and then like the baby
I think she
isn't
slept with the
real.
cheerleader. The
Yeah,
baby wasn't
the baby
real.
Isn't real. And somehow she kept that a secret. Like, yeah, right.
And then Finn committed suicide.
Are you guys talking about like whatever it is you're talking about? Or are you talking about like American Horror Story?
No, man, this was Fox number one show,
a
Glee.
crossover episode.
The crossover episode. Where the Glee Club becomes Battle Royale.
Holy shit. Okay, well, anyways, these three dudes run up to the tree and they're like, "What the fuck? Are you from Wisconsin or something?" And I take offense to that. And Steve
I
is just
might
like
be.
up there and they like basically pulled you out of the tree and then they're like, "Yeah, get the hell out of here." And then it was bar time anyways and everybody started coming out and we were just like walking in the streets.
Walking in the
But
streets.
we went to Sean and my old place, and that night, right after we found a parking spot, we stumbled upon these two guys with a 32 rack. Oh no, just a 30 rack of PBR.
Just a 30 rack, not a 32
not the
rack.
32. And they were sitting in the sidewalk, and they're like, "Hey, do you guys want a beer?" And we were like, "Yeah." And it was like 2 a.m. already, but we hung out for 2.5 hours. On that sidewalk, just drinking PBRs and lighting bowls and listening to Zeppelin. Yeah, that was it was super fun. We made plans to do it 2 weeks later, but I think they fell through. But we never saw those guys again, and they were moving out, and we were moving out, and
Well, now they're on the podcast, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Immortalized, yeah. That's that's the type of story that like I wouldn't have remembered because I wasn't part of it, unless you guys share that, and that's actually like really awesome to have on the podcast. I'll finish up here because we're at 52 minutes and it's long, but I know this is the type of podcast that I'm going to love listening back to. You might not feel the same, but I will. Some of my favorite things about this apartment, number one, I'm very much a cost effectiveness mindset type of person. I love that we paid $1,700 a month for this, through all its aches and pains, to get a spot like this close to the Red Line, in Chicago for $1,700 a month is an absolute steal, which was awesome, even with all the cockroaches and mice, etc. Yeah, good Quinn taketh. Other things I really liked. What I really loved about this apartment was that it can be a little small at times, but that it's actually really nice because there weren't very many times when all four of us were around, and I'm sure it was similar this year for you guys because you guys are in grad school and that's crazy busy. But there would be a few nights here and there, and sometimes we get Steven in the mix, sometimes we get Jombles in the mix. Frey would often be in the mix where it's just like we were all here and we weren't necessarily doing anything crazy, but it was just like that didn't happen very often. And it was definitely something that I took for granted, like the pianist being in group piano for 2 years, like we were just always together, and I took that for granted. And like when I left music school and to do my grad degree, like that, it was just completely different. So it was really fun when I was just able to be together with people. And that's something that now living by myself, there are a ton of things I love about living by myself, and they outweigh the things that I loved about living with other people, which is why I'm living by myself. But there were a lot of things with living with other people, especially when it's mostly people you like, that really enhances your experience. I love the piece of shit wooden shelving unit that we pulled out of the alley. Sean and I, always partners in crime with moving stuff. It was like, I don't know, like our second or third week of living here. I remember walking home from the train station, looking over into the alley and being like, this thing is out there. It's fair game. I was going to just pick it up myself. It's too heavy. And so I come back to the apartment and I'm like, Sean, like this thing's 2 blocks away. Like, let's go grab it. Cause we were in need of something like that. And it's being utilized very well right now. A lot of stuff on it. We just go and grab it. There's like nails coming out of it.
I had to pull some staples out of it with, with the hammer.
Like, I don't know who put this together. I think it was like a Boy Scout project or something with like Boy Scouts on LSD. But it was we brought that into the apartment, which was really cool. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna take a couple pics while I'm here, just because I can remember like all the living spaces I've ever lived in my life, but I'm sure that will begin to fade, you know, when I'm not 23 and when I'm 53. So that would be nice to have. But
Right around the corner.
Right around the corner, yeah. It's all downhill here for me. Yeah, I don't know. Moore's Fresh Market, that grew on me quite a bit. I was always a little scared away because it was a little pricier than Aldi, but you used to be able to go there and like get like a foot-long sandwich cut into 3 for like $5, and that was really good value. And yeah, I don't know. Just I think the location is a little underrated, to be honest. Like, you've got a couple bars on Morse, you've got a grocery store, like you're right by the lake, you're 2 blocks from the train. Yeah, I don't know. People always, when I told them last year I lived in Rogers Park, or I guess 2 years ago now, they were kind of turned off. But I'm like, it's cheaper, it's residential, it's quiet. You can still live close to the train. It took me 20 minutes to get from Fullerton to Morse today. You take it another 5 minutes and you're like River North area. Like, it's not hard to get to these places. So Rogers Park, underrated. 1320 West Farwell, underrated. Yeah, I don't know. Any closing thoughts from anybody? Anybody want to say anything? Steven, you have any big projects coming up you want to plug?
I'm not working on anything.
Okay, that's all right. I don't know.
Like, I personally probably will not miss living in this place. There are a lot of good things. There are a lot of things I'm not going to miss, like living in the room underneath a set of stairs.
Sean got the short end of the stick with the room selection. Yeah, that's because you were too nice when we moved in. You're like, oh, yeah, I'll take
I
it.
wasn't aggressive enough.
John Straws.
And I was the last person to pick a room, and I got the best room.
Ryan's room is like, we could have just fit 2 people in there and used Sean's room as like the closet it was built to be.
But we had a good time. It always has its ups and downs, but I think we all had a good time.
Hey, we could experiment with that in the new place.
Ups and downs? We're just gonna try
Dorming like 2 people in one room.
I
and
always had the
using
dream-
another room for like
A playroom.
Yeah.
a playroom.
For fun and activities. I always had the dream when we were undergrads of like getting a 1-bedroom apartment somewhere and just going barrack style and like having a like apartment where that's all we do is like eat and sleep there. But we would all be paying like $150 a month, and we could spend our money on so many other activities.
That was you who had that
It
idea.
was me who had that idea.
Oh, it's such a brilliant idea.
I know.
That sounds a lot better in theory than I think it will work out in practice.
We'll never know. That's one thing we can say for sure.
Hey, it's not
Yeah.
too late. We could move down to Baltimore with you.
Hey, man. You guys can all cram into my 420 square foot studio apartment, and we'll really put the barracks idea to the test. Yeah. I don't know. Anything, Ryan, on your end?
Nah. Yeah.
Wise words. Yeah. I appreciate Stan came down here right after we moved in, and he brought his saw, and I had to do some. The bed is a story I'm not going to tell because it's really not that exciting. But I had a year-long odyssey with my bed frame while I was here with stupid slats. That's a word I just hate, like slats. With like cutting them too short, and like falling through the slats in the middle of the night, and eventually like nailing them into the IKEA wood frame I had bought, and it was like really janky. I still have that twin mattress. It's like standing up against one of my walls in my apartment because I'm like, I use this occasionally. Like my brother came and visited in April, and he slept on it, and that mattress is shitty. It's older than I am, but I'm like, as long as I have the space for it, it's not pretty, but I have that. And then the tiger blanket which was my comforter last year for my bed, is now hanging up as a tapestry in my apartment above my bed. It's come full circle because that's the way my dad did it when he had his first apartment out of college. So a little circle of life action for you there. We're at an hour, and we're going to wrap it up because we have some partying to do. We have a whole other pizza. We have got some liquor, and we're going to bring in some hot babes to really spice this party up, or honeys, as Stephen would say, one of his go-to terms, which I used today, and I took that from him. That is going to wrap up our Farewell to Farwell podcast. If anyone's listening to this and it's like 9 p.m. on Saturday night, come on out because we're going wild.
We're gonna break some windows, flip some couches. Hey, you'll never guess who just arrived.
Is it Jombles?
It's Jombles.
Oh, Jombles is pounding.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to...
You know him from the podcast 2 weeks ago. Jombles, we literally have like 30
welcome
seconds
for
left on this podcast.
Jombles.
Jombles, share one fun memory of living, or not living, of being in 1320 West Farwell. Any memory of being here that you want to go live on this podcast?
Any memory?
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many good ones though. Let's see. There was that first time we played Haunted House on the Hill, where we first tried it out. Hello.
Oh, the party's starting. I love how seamless this transition is.
Yeah, she's in her room.
This is the greatest podcast ever. Keep going, Jombles.
Keep going. That was my one thing.
You're closing the show.
I had only decided on one thing.
Jombles, you are Beantown Podcast royalty because you are the first guest to appear on 2 podcast episodes.
What's up, guys?
This podcast is collapsing.
Dying star fading into
that's
itself.
the sort of mentality that we don't need on Beantown Podcast.
Oh,
Racism.
Fuck you.
Oh, JP, we got pizza if you want some.
Oh, you know I can't eat pizza.
Oh yeah.
Fuck, man.
He's vegan now.
Why don't you say anything,
That's a story
Lowe's?
from 1320.
Because I didn't know if we were gonna be. I didn't know if like I was gonna get here and the podcast was gonna be over and the pizza's gonna be gone. So I just let it go.
Did you get the voice message we left you?
Which one? You called me during mass.
Oh, call him during Mass.
Yeah.
Happy
So,
birthday, Jesus.
Yeah. Merry
Something
Christmas.
something you don't know about JP is that he's very religious.
Well, yeah.
I'm a. Excuse me.
Brenda you look like Steven Tyler. Wow, she's got some fun patterns, and dude looks like a lady.
This is my husband.
Okay, we are
Dude
going to
really
end the
does look
podcast
like
here
ladies.
because it is getting off the rails. I have to let everyone go. It's chaos. This is what 1320 West Farwell is all about. Thank you to my guests Sean Young, Stephen Boy, Ryan Singer, John Paul Pendowski for helping me on this podcast.
Subliminal messages.
Sure. This has been Quinn David Furness. This is my podcast. Thank you for listening. Have a good week. I will check in on you next week live from New Jersey.